How long is a paragraph?
3 to 6 sentences.
3 to 6 sentences?
Yeah.
What do you think, Mr. Collins? What'd you say? Did you say 5?
Yeah,
5 to 8? Any other, anybody else want to throw some numbers out there? Yes, ma'am? 5 to 7? So the actual answer is a paragraph is as long as it needs to be. It's as many sentences as it needs to be. Okay, whatever is a complete topic is a paragraph. Now, what I will tell you is in the vast majority of cases, so many of you were right coming up here, for the type of writing like this, which will come up more than once in your high school career, we're looking at 5 to 6 sentences. Okay, but those 5 to 6 sentences all have specific purposes. So we have a hook that's 1 sentence. We have what we call a bridge or segue that's 3 to 4. And then our thesis statement is 1. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about all the 3 components that go into an introductory paragraph in detail. Well, it's in somewhat detail with some examples. All right, let's start with a hook. Notice what it says, right? One sentence that seeks to grab the attention of your reader. So ideally, you can come up with your own hook or attention grabber. Right, and so in the example given, this is something that's original. Notice that it's focused on dates. Does anybody know what happened on December 7th, 1941? Okay, Pearl Harbor got bombed and dragged the U.S. into World War II. November 22nd, 1963. Anybody know what happened on that date?
Is it D-Day?
Say again?
Is it D-Day?
No. That is the day that John F. Kennedy Jr. was assassinated. And then September 11th, 2001. So what this example is doing, right, is connecting 9/11 to other dates where if people were alive, so people who were alive on December 7th, 1941, right, they can tell you exactly what they were doing, where they were, who they were with, right, when they found out that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor. Now, a lot of them kind of had to ask the same question, where's Pearl Harbor, right? But they understood the significance of that. November 22nd, 1963, same exact thing. When people heard that the president had been shot at that time and then later died, they can tell you exactly what they were doing, where they were, and then the same is very much true of September 11th, 2001. Now, you can't come up with something on your own. Then you come up with an integrated, a really good hook is an integrated quotation. In other words, you provide some context. Who's speaking? What gives them credibility, that sort of thing, right? From a reputable source, right? So you're not going to use some 17-year-old YouTube influencer as your reputable source for 9/11 because he or she wasn't there. Right? Now, if he or she, maybe their mom or dad survived or something like that, and they've talked about it, you might be onto something. But a reputable source, someone that you would read and say, oh, okay, yeah. So this Robert Reig, people are generally going to pay attention to what he has to say because he was there. Okay, so again, either come up with something original, or if all else fails, you can use an integrated quotation. All right, so oftentimes an introduction is represented by a triangle that kind of points down. The reason being is because you start broad and you start to narrow your focus as you continue with the paragraph. So now we're going to get a little bit more specific, right? And so what we call a bridge or a segue is a way to provide some background information. So let's talk about, there's a really famous bridge where we live. What is it? What's the Mackinac Bridge do? Connects the two peninsulas that make up Michigan, yes, right? So the reason we call this a bridge is because it connects, and then what's a segue?
A segue.
Not talking about the two-wheeled things that people ride around either.
What's that?
Segway. But it does kind of, it gets its name from what the actual definition of segue is. You might know what it means. Like if you've heard somebody say, oh, that's a really good segue into.
Like into another topic. Transitions.
Okay, so what you're doing in this part of your introduction, you're transitioning or you're connecting the really broad idea 9/11, right? You're getting a little bit more specific here. So in this example, it's talking about how important of a date that 9/11 is, or the event of 9/11. Okay. Then what we do is, now we're about to get to, went too far, our thesis statement. So, again, those of you who had Mr. Taplin are not allowed to answer. What is that? That's two people, right? So, Mia and Fiona. Anybody else have him 7th hour again? Oh, several others. Okay. So let me ask somebody who has Mr. Taplin at 7th hour. What is going to be in your essay? What's going to be in your essay? You have him 7th hour?
Oh, no.
You've already had him?
Yeah.
You're not allowed to answer because you already know. What's going to be in your essay? Besides an introduction. Yes, sir.
Thesis statement.
Let's say again.
Thesis.
Yeah, you're going to have a thesis statement. So let me ask you like this. What's going to follow your thesis statement?
What?
What's going to follow your thesis statement?
An example.
Yes, ma'am. What's the body going to consist of?
Summary.
You guys look. Can you guys see back? Those of you who are back there, can you see what this says? All right. So somebody who's had Mr. Taplin can answer this. How many paragraphs is your essay? 5. All right. What are the 5 paragraphs? Introduction.
Interview with a person
Conclusion.
An interview with a person who witnessed.
Let's do this. Let's be a little bit more general for right now, Landon. You're on the right, but we're going to talk about that. All right. So we have an introduction. Then what? Yes.
Body.
A body paragraph. How many body paragraphs are you going to have? 3. Okay. And then you're going to end with a
Conclusion.
So Landon, what are your 3 body paragraphs going to be?
One is a interview with a parent, someone who witnessed the effect.
Or who were alive. Yep, someone who was alive at the time, right? What's another body paragraph? Lies?
Article.
So either like an article or a documentary. And what I'm going to tell you guys is probably starting today, certainly tomorrow, there's going to be a ton of 9/11 programming, right? On just about any channel. If you're using like a documentary or a video, there's going to be a ton of stuff. There's also going to be a lot of written things as well. But yeah, you're going to need to focus on one of those. And then what's the 3rd body paragraph? Mr. Collins? Your own analysis. All right, so notice what the thesis statement is doing, right? It's telling your reader, okay, this essay is going to consist of a personal interview, summary of a documentary, and my own analysis. So in other words, it's going to be body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, body paragraph 3. Okay? And we'll talk more about the body paragraphs in the coming days. So just so you know, we're going to cover a different part of the essay each day this week, but we're going to have to combine 2 of the paragraphs. All right, and then what I mean by that is, I'm going to talk about two of them in one lesson. All right, and then it also states, all right, now through these, ultimately, what's the goal of your essay? In this case, it's to demonstrate the 9/11 terrorist attacks represent one of the most pivotal points in American history, right? So taken together, when I interview somebody, when I watch a documentary or read an article, and then when I start thinking about it myself, right, then I can make this argument. It's one of the most pivotal points in American history. So, who's flown recently? What do you have to do when you fly? You have to go through security, right? So, here's an example of something you guys were born into, right? I remember when the TSA was formed, right? There was no TSA before 9/11. Occasionally, or not occasionally, but I mean, most airports had their own little security, I don't want to say force or whatever, but, and it depended on, it was different according to the airport that you flew out of. Some were really good, some were like, oh, okay, wow, so I could have smuggled in all kinds of stuff through by that guy, right? And then it got uniformed, literally in some cases, with the TSA after 9/11. So that would be an example of how 9/11 impacts you guys, right? Even though you weren't alive when it occurred. All right, here's what we're going to do. The point of the triangle here, this is the narrowest point. Oops.